There are 651 Gamecube games, and I'm trying to beat them all while at the mercy of this horrendous wheel. Welcome to Beating the Gamecube. Game 29 is 1080 Degrees Avalanche. Released in 2003, it was both developed and published by Nintendo themselves. This is the direct sequel to the very popular 1080 Degrees Snowboarding from the N64, and unlike games like SSX Tricky, focuses more on speed and racing than stunts and tricks. Did I speed my way to greatness, or was I crushed by a mountain of powder? Let's find out. It kicks off with a long opening movie and the music is pounding. As is the case with many sports games, the soundtrack is all licensed singles. However, unlike some previous titles we've done, I pretty much enjoyed every song. We enter the main menu, and I gotta say, I was impressed. For modes, we have Match Race, which is the main racing event, along with multiplayer and even LAN options for playing with friends. Besides those, you can do Gate Challenge, Trick Attack, and Time Trial stages to unlock various upgrades and shoot for high scores. Lots of content here. When I had a look through the options menu, I was equally impressed. There's tons of useful settings, a full-on tutorial section that explains how to play with helpful little tips, and a full controls breakdown. Am I in heaven? We've rarely known such luxuries during this challenge. In order to beat this one, I'm going to need to clear the expert difficulty of match mode. That means beating the novice and hard courses to unlock it, and then winning expert will cause the credits to roll. Before I could jump into the novice course, I needed to pick my guy. Each member of the roster has slightly different stats. I asked my chat to vote, and they picked Akari Hayami. She favors better handling and acceleration. You also pick your board, and that affects your stats too, and you only start with a terrible one. I thought I'd see how far I could get before needing to unlock others via the time trial mode. It was time to jump into the novice circuit. This is a quick one, as it's only a few very simple courses that help you to learn the game. I found the mechanics really fun, speed is the focus, and everything else serves that end. Performing tricks doesn't reward score, but rather it builds power meter. Maxing this out will allow you to skim across deep powder rather than being slowed down. By holding the L button, your character will tuck and significantly increase their top speed. This, however, does come at the cost of handling, making for a fun risk and reward sort of system. You can jump by holding the A button, and the longer it's held, the further you'll go. But failing a jump, holding A for too long, hitting an obstacle, or turning too sharply will cause you to lose balance. This is fixed by spinning the control stick very quickly. And that's really about it. After that, it comes down to pure execution, snapshot decision making, and improving your stunt timings to score more power. I'm a big fan of games like this, and Monkey Ball, easy to learn but hard to master. The novice circuit was 4 courses long, and in the third one, I took my first L. I was still experimenting with tricks though, and each stage has multiple paths to take, so I wasn't that upset. In place of lives, you get ski lift tickets, so that's a cute little way of having a thematic reason for why you can run out of attempts. My second time around, I found a few shortcuts, and I used a grind rail to max out my power. Turns out max power even lets you bowl over your competition, so take that, Cayman. That just left the final course of Novice. Sub-Zero Assault Spinal Damage. Certainly an ominous name. This is where the Avalanche in the title comes in. Unlike its N64 predecessor, this game ups the ante by concluding each match race by having you flee an avalanche. It's as crazy as it sounds, and the expert one we'll get to later is something else. Thankfully though, the novice version is pretty tame, allowing the player a chance to practice the far longer and more complex course. I more or less cruised here, and without much trouble, we crossed the finish line. That locked in a novice circuit dub. I could now challenge the hard circuit. Just before we move on to hard mode though, I'd like to mention the sound design of this game. I think it's amazing. The announcer is especially cool, but combine him with the sound effects and the fast-paced soundtrack and you have a really high-octane experience.
Match 1. Easy Life. Powder Threat. Akari Hayami versus Terra Hunter. Method.
Roast beef! And so it's now time for hard mode, which begins with Powder Threat. And unlike the N64 prequel, every match circuit has fully unique courses. Where 1080 Snowboarding mostly ramped its difficulty by having the comms just move faster, here the stages also ramp up in complexity and length. I would often be lagging behind in the first half of a race, but maxing out the power meter gives such an incredible boost that I could often snipe a win. We then move on to Match 2, which is Tree Top Trauma. There's trees, alright? By now, my skills were rapidly improving, and I was getting very consistent on my tricks, including aiming for that elusive 1080 spin. I was also noticing shortcuts more frequently. It's really crazy how dense these courses are. There are usually 3 or 4 divergent paths, and you move so quickly, it's very tough to find them on your first pass through. I nearly fumbled this one by the finish line, but still managed to squeak across just before Rob caught up to me. Phew! Now this is where things start to get pretty spicy. Match 3 is called Grits and Gravy, and this one gets turbulent. At the very beginning, there's this log bridge that collapses once a racer touches it. For a second, I thought Cayman made it, but both he and I fell into the substantially trickier and slower bottom course. You spend a lot of this game boarding on every possible surface besides snow, but it is pretty cool that through controller shake and sense of momentum, you can definitely feel the difference of each. Sadly, I just couldn't recover from that rough start, and that marked my first life lost in hard mode. I jumped right back in. I was really hoping to nail the bridge shortcut, but once again, we didn't have the speed needed, and this is where using baby's first snowboard definitely started to hold me back. My stats were just very, very low. Before long, I had lost again. For the first time ever, I was down to my final attempt, and I must say, I appreciate that you could just instantly jump back in for a retry. Sadly, the damage had been done, and I experienced my first game over of the playthrough. This means starting the whole circuit over again, so the pressure mounts the further into one you are. I was really trying to push my limits here, and I decided to try and beat the game with just the pleb snowboard, but this time I took Rob Haywood as his total stats are easily the highest. On my 4th attempt of Grits and Gravy, I finally managed to nail a grind on the bridge and enter the elusive top path and max out my power. Most of this course does lack in snow, so you need max power to prevent the friction from killing your speed. Even with that path secure though, the comms are no joke. Ah! Oh my god, that was close. Dude, I won by 14 milliseconds. Holy. We moved on to match 4 now, Trestle Trouble, and I was racing the game's resident twink, Ricky Winterbourne. This one was definitely less trouble than the previous stage, but the powder is extremely deep, so gaining and keeping power meter is the name of the game. This one was far more linear than the others, but the more enclosed nature of it makes it harder to perform tricks and build said meter. I enjoyed the variety of levels, each requires a unique approach and tests a slightly different part of your skill set.
Final challenge. Sub-Zero Assault. Ballistic.
Okay, listen up. You gotta get to the bottom before the timer runs out. But be careful. There's some nasty rock slides in the area. Good luck.
Oh man, these final challenges are a blast. The lack of an opponent means they could go all out on terrain complexity, and the combination of a longer course and a ticking clock definitely made for some good tension. We also do some downright absurd stunts. I barreled through ice sheets down a 50-foot drop and somehow didn't shatter every bone in my body. At the halfway mark, a cutscene played, and this time, the Avalanche means business. I was hounded by it for the remainder of the course, and there is a danger meter showing how close it is. The closer it gets, the shakier the camera becomes, and you'll see an expert later, it reaches Jello in an earthquake levels of jiggle. Despite my best efforts to plow headfirst into a tree, I did manage to cross the finish line on my very first attempt, and that concluded the hard pass of Match Race. That means Expert was now available, and that's our ticket to the credits. Now I won't even bother showing you my first Expert attempt with Rob, as I got totally cooked. By now, using the basic board was taking a heavy toll. So as I show you Expert, just keep in mind that the comms boards are now at least twice as good as my own. I switched over to Cayman as he has the highest top speed, and that was the only way I could keep pace with the comms now. Expert Match 1 is Revolution Cliff, and this is where things made a noticeable ramp. The courses became significantly longer, and the complexity of obstacles only continued to increase. I managed to hit my first 720 spin during this one, and I was still chasing a 1080. You need big air and to spin the control stick like an absolute fiend if you want to get one. I could feel a big difference in my top speed though, and after knocking over Tara and some poor random dude, I locked in a cheeky dub. Match 2 was Midnight City, and this is easily my favorite track in the whole game. I love the nighttime aesthetic, and it had the most varied locations too. We began by zooming through a quaint little town while I ramped up my power meter. It was then onto a mountain road. Reaching into that gave way to a more industrial area, and as I cut my way through an underpass, I had to think, how am I not eating dirt by boarding on asphalt? Nevertheless, this progressed and we reached a glowing city where you can hit a series of ramps and staircases. At max power, I was able to terrorize the civilians by knocking both cars and pedestrians out of my way. After a really cool spiral segment, I even crashed my way through a restaurant before breaking through their balcony. Even the finish line is awesome with a giant Mario ice sculpture behind it. 10 out of 10 for this one, no notes. Match 3 is Rotted Ridge, and this one did give me some grief. Despite Akari and I both maxing out power near the start, the top path is hard to stay on, and once I fell, I just could not get my momentum back. I was surprisingly close to winning thanks to Akari being a slow character, but I just made too many mistakes. My second attempt looked about the same, so I was down to my last ticket, but this time I came to win and managed to hit the top path early on. I kept max power for the entire run, and that let me use my top speed to huge effect. The third time was the charm, and we locked in a win. Entering course number 4, Diesel Disaster, there was no room for error, which was a problem, because doing this course blind was not fun. There were just many times I went for what looked like a path or shortcut only to hit an invisible wall, and I really don't think the map was as useful on this stage as it was for others. The ending is tricky too. There's a number of trains, rails, and snowmobiles to dodge. Ricky beat me out, and that sent me back to the main menu. Similar to Monkey Ball, this meant I needed to make my way all the way back through the stages I've beaten just to get an attempt on the one I'm learning. Again, to be clear, I was making my life a lot harder than it needed to be. At any point, I could have just farmed time trials for better boards. I just found this game really enjoyable, and I think it's really cool that you can beat it with the worst board possible if you absolutely master the controls and shortcuts. I had another attempt at Diesel Disaster, and this time had all of my tickets. But despite my best efforts, I just could not take it home. I consistently choked at the last second. Maybe I hit a rail, crashed into a snowmobile, or lost my momentum. But Tara was always just a little ahead of me at the finish. Ay, ay, ay. It took me 10 minutes to get back to it, but I was soon taking yet another crack at this demon course. This time, I could feel my practice paying off, and it's really satisfying feeling a noticeable difference in both your skills and knowledge, and then reaping the rewards of both. At long last, I came in first, and it wasn't even close this time. The final race against the com was Frozen Melee, Sick With It. This was also my first ever mirror match, and the cute little details, even the commentator is surprised.
Cayman Vasquez versus
Oh my god! This is probably the most deceptively complex course in the game. Where many have 2 paths that diverge, rejoin, and cross, this one has at least 3 at any time, and sometimes even more than that. The difference between the tippy top path over the mountains and the lowest in the gutter is very stark. Thankfully, I was getting pretty damn good at the game by now, and the enemy Cayman seemed to be having some trouble with getting stuck on rocks. That meant a first try dub, and onto the final Avalanche.
Final challenge. Avalanche Alley. No way out.
You're sure you want to go through with this? You know they call it no way out, don't you? Okay.
Come on, dude.
I'm gonna get out quick. It's really unstable up here. I'll maintain radio contact as long as I look out.
Alright, Avalanche from the beginning this time. Shaky cam all the way down. Let's go. I had to max my power out. I'm not going to be able to stay in front of it. Even the music goes shaky. That's pretty funny. Oh, God. This is going to be tough. I get 2 more chances. Oh, dude. I have to max out power, or I just can't go fast enough. Oh, my God. Oh, no. Gotta max out power and not get stuck with excessive screen shake. I'm dead. Oh my god. That is tough, dude. Alright, dude, here it is. I finally hit the ceiling on what I could achieve with the baby board. You have unlimited retries on the Avalanches, but I just wasn't remotely close to beating it. I had to get an upgrade. This led to an hour-long side quest where I needed to complete 9 different time trials to unlock a set of boards that were about twice as good as the starting ones. We'll only show a bit of this as it's all the same stages we've covered, but it's a really cool mode. The timer itself doesn't matter. You could try and set new records and stuff, but to unlock boards, what I need is coins. These are assembled by finding 5 pieces per stage, and man, are these hard to find. They were not messing around here. You must get all 5 in one go, and they are scattered all over the stages in hard to reach locations. What's awesome though is that this is the most effective way to learn each course, and in particular the shortcuts. If you give this game a go, I highly recommend you hit the time trial for each stage before doing the match race version. You will absolutely schmoove. An hour later, I'd finally farmed 9 different coins, and with my new god boards at the ready, it was time to beat this game. Before the conclusion, I thought you might like to know about some extras and unlockables. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed these added details. Gate Challenge is another mode where you traverse the course while passing through gates indicated by a series of arrows. This unlocks gimmick boards as opposed to time trial, which is mostly stats. These include a penguin, NES controller, a paintbrush, and even a jet rocket. As you may expect, the jet rocket is the best board in the game. It has built-in thrust and it's insanely fast. There's also Trick Attack, which as you would expect involves chaining tricks together to score as highly as possible. There are some pretty crazy videos on YouTube of people aiming for records and high scores. An alternate costume for each character unlocks by beating Expert with them, and you can also unlock Extreme mode by beating Expert with any character. I only need to do Expert for the credits, but we're also showing a little bit of Extreme to you now. Lastly, if you beat Extreme with each character, you'll unlock Goofy characters. These include a skeleton, snowman, and even a moose. So this game is filled to the gills with things to do and unlock. Good stuff. One last thing to mention is that I did at last hit my elusive goal of the 1080. 1080! That's the name of the game. To reach the Avalanche and put a bow on this one, I had to beat all 5 previous matches one final time. I must say though, combine my new knowledge of shortcuts from time trials and my Swish new boards and you have one hell of a difference. I was absolutely flying through and I had a big smile on my face watching these back for the edit. But here we are, at long last we're back at the Avalanche and this time I'm prepared. It's still a really cool stage, and the new board does not make it free like the jet rocket would. I still think this is beatable with the baby boards, but you would need max power, and it's really hard to build the meter whilst fleeing imminent death. I came close to losing a couple of times, but thankfully a midpoint cutscene did bail me out. Towards the end, I finally maxed my power out, and that gave me the push I needed to get the win.
Can you hear me? Listen, I'm just on the other side of that cave.
This is it, chat, about to be the game! That's a pretty good ending. Nice. And that, my friends, concludes 1080 Degrees Avalanche. I was really impressed with this one. High octane fun and a decent challenge to boot. It took me 3 hours and 6 minutes to beat, with plenty more playtime if you're a completionist. I gave this a 7 for difficulty. This is the embodiment of easy to pick up but hard to master. Had I gone for better boards sooner, it would have been quicker. Enjoyment also scored a 7. This game is great. It's not often I could see myself playing a sports game again down the line. If you made it to the end, then please enjoy a sneak peek at what I'll be playing next time. As per my challenge's rules, I pick every game ending in a 0. For game 30, I decided on Mario Party 4. I remember really enjoying the size-changing gimmick and some of the minigames being really fun and memorable. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.